If you're a car enthusiast in high school right about now, there's a good chance you've heard of the S13. And if you haven't, you've definitely heard of the 240SX or Silvia, right? Well, that's because this car is one of the biggest things to happen to car culture in a long time, and nobody even knows why. My name is Mark Roden, and this is what makes the Nissan S13 so great. In order to even begin talking about the S13, we have to do a boring little history lesson, since people always think the S13 is the first S chassis ever when it's quite the opposite. In 1962, a man working for BMW, who I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name, who actually made the legendary BMW 507, noticed the potential of Japanese sports cars and decided to take his talents overseas. I'm taking my talents to Miami. That man in question decided it was time for Nissan to get their grubby little hands on the prize and dropped the wonderful Nissan Silvia for the very first time. It was an incredibly lightweight sports car that was marketed towards the younger crowd rather than the old heads who didn't understand how a TV worked, and it was a huge success. After that, they built the next gen Silvia, which went by the chassis code S10, then the S110, and then the S12, all getting better and better and better than the last one performance-wise, while sticking to the roots of being a lightweight sports car and not worrying whether your girlfriend thought it was a good financial decision. Then the entire car culture would drastically change in the year of 1988 with the launch of the 4th generation Silvia. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to the Nissan Silvia S13. Onto the scene, the world didn't know what to think, partially because they never know what to think. I mean, people are still arguing over whether Hitler was a good guy or not, so we're definitely not the brightest of species out there. But also because the previous generation, the S12, was like me in middle school, not popular. But the world quickly changed their minds when reviews came out. At first, the car was nothing special. For the first 2 years, it was offered with the same motor that the S12 before it had, a measly 1.8 liter that was called the CA18D8. Oh my god, I butchered that. The CA18DE or the CA18DET when it was equipped with a turbo. They even added an intercooler to the turbo motor to add a bit of power, but even then the car only made 166 horsepower at its peak with the CA motor in it. But do not fret, my child, for the great kingdom of Nissan shall not stand by idly and allow their sports car to be called slow. So, in 1990, they gave the S13 the legendary, the one, the only, the SR20. That's right, buddy. We've all heard the old folk tales when our mammy and pappy were tucking us in for a nice winter slumber. The wonderful SR20, only available in literally every single country besides America, was slapped into the S13. And not only did they put it in this car, the engine was built specifically for this car. Now, with that being said, the first couple years do tend to have some issues because, well, it's a brand new engine. They haven't had the time to roughen out the edges. But even those issues were very minor, like choosing what YouTube video to watch when you're eating. I'm just kidding, by the way. I know firsthand that trying to find the perfect YouTube video for your meal is so tough, and by the time you finally actually find one, the food is damn near frozen again. So don't worry, I'll cut you some time. Just look up Mark Roden the next time you're eating and just watch one of his videos. He's a great guy. But anyway, the SR20, for those wondering, is a 2-liter inline-4, and in the DE models, SR20DE, it made a nice 162 horsepower, which is only 4 less than the previous turbo model, but the SR20 Det, which is the one you want, made an insane 201 all the way up to 252 horsepower depending on the year that you get, and since the internals on the turbo motor are a lot stronger than the naturally aspirated one, you could very easily get a whole lot more. Nowadays, with modern technology and over 30 years straight of trial and error, there are tons of aftermarket parts for absolutely anything that you want to change on your SR20, all for different price ranges, build types, and horsepower gains. It's honestly insane how much aftermarket support the SR20 has gotten, and again, since the car has been a tuner car for so long, 30 years, there's endless forums and posts from people just like you to help you decide which is best for your SR20. The common consensus is the motor is good for around 700 horsepower with stock internals. Let me just use your ear as an answering machine real quickly, pal. That's 700 horsepower in the 90s when the Lambos and Ferraris were barely touching 400. Now, I know we've been sitting around the campfire and singing our campfire song, the CAMPFIRESONG song, and telling spooky ghost stories for the past couple minutes about the boogeyman of Nissan engines in the 90s, but sadly, we got to put that damn fire out. The state trooper came by, smelled that sticky icky, but really it was just my BO, so we got kicked out. Sorry. The state trooper in this scenario is the United States government, and my BO is emission standards in the 90s, because guess what? We, of course, didn't get the good engine. Instead, we got an engine from a damn truck. It was called the KA24DE, and no, we never got a turbo model either. That means if we want an S13 over in the States, the best we can do is 135 horsepower in a 2.4 liter inline 4. Now, obviously, people do still tune these engines. After all, the car is very light, and you can still get 300 horsepower out of the engine without touching internals, which isn't too bad. It also isn't too hard to find a rolling shell for these cars, and SR20 motors are actually cheaper than you would think, so there are tons of SR20 S13s in the States, but if you see one, it's either imported or a swapped engine, which definitely sucks. But due to this, if you enjoy the S13 for its looks and handling and are fine with having a low-powered car, which is totally understandable by the way, they can still be fun. These cars used to be cheap as hell, and yes, they've definitely got a whole lot more expensive, and I definitely am not going to be the one to say they're a good deal anymore, but at least you know that if you buy one, the prices will continue to rise more and more, so it's kind of a good investment.
It's free real estate.
The S13 is known worldwide as an amazing tuner car for all around, but I feel like people massively misunderstand how amazing they used to be. Whoa, that was a weird voice crack. Picture this, it's 2013 and you want a car that's lightweight, rear-wheel drive, and has tons of aftermarket support, so you can eventually bring that puppy to your local canyon and gap any unsuspecting victim in their daddy's BMW. Now, as we all know, we're car guys, so that means we're pretty damn broke, so our options are kind of limited. Back then, in 2013, I would say around 2007 to 2013, back then, all American and German cars that got all the praise were way too overpriced, and that's why people looked up to Japanese sports cars. Cars like the AE86, Miata, 350Z, WRXs, and most importantly, the 240SX were incredibly cheap back then. People were selling perfectly fine AE86s for less than $3,000. $3,000 back then, and S13s? Bro, you could have found one for $20 in a half-eaten Kit Kat. And when you have a car that's so cheap but rear-wheel drive, what is the first thing you do? You go drifting, pal. That's right, buddy. As we all know, the S13 wasn't just a very well-handling sports car. It also turned out to be one of the most iconic drift cars of all time, arguably the most iconic drift car of all time. And since drifting is becoming more and more popular by the day, the car is honestly becoming one of the most iconic JDM cars of all time. And yes, it's overpriced, but you can still very easily find a stock running and driving 240SX S13 for under $10,000, which isn't too bad when you consider the appreciation that these cars have gone through. The S13 Silvia was most certainly not the first Silvia ever produced. It also wasn't the last, nor was it the best, but I believe if it wasn't for this car, the S chassis in general would have just gone down in history as another forgotten about JDM gem. I know the S chassis, and especially S13, is a car that gets talked about a lot, and I didn't need to make this video for sure, but I hope I opened your eyes either way to what makes these cars so special and why people are still, to this day, dropping $5,000 plus on it even though it has a truck motor in it. Thank you, Nissan, for making some of the coolest sports cars of the 90s, and now all you have to do is redeem yourself. Give us a damn S16 Silvia. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of today's video of what makes the Nissan S13 so great, whether it's a 240SX or Silvia. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Let me know what other deep dives or what makes it great, whatever you want to call it. Let me know whatever one you want to see next. I am thinking about doing it with the Nissan Laurel, or maybe even like a Honda Accord one. Maybe it's on the radar. It's on the radar. Beep beep on the Accord. There it is. But let me know what you guys want to see. I'd really appreciate it. Also keep in mind today, for some reason, I had to get this video. I had to record this. I have an editor for these deep dives now, and I didn't want to delay him anymore. So I wanted to get him this video. But today I was kind of all over the place. So like I was just kind of like rambling today. Like I have a lot of energy today. I really don't know why. So if I feel a little bit out there, let me know in the comments. Tell me, like, Mark, it was a little bit hard to follow at some points. You were a little bit weird, because if I was, I would like to know. Like in my mind, I can kind of see it, but I also feel like I might just be overthinking it. So just let me know. I don't know. Just tell me in the comments if you think that this video was, like, me talking in the background was a little bit weirder than usual, because I really hope it wasn't. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Let me know what other deep dives you'd like to see. Das Vidania, and have a nice night.